Bonjour everyone, I hope you are all well. Today we are going to talk about the full blue moon in Sagittarius on May 31st, 2026, which will occur at 9 degrees 55 minutes of Sagittarius at 6:44 p.m. Brisbane time, Australia. Once in a blue moon is a common expression that has been used for a long time and which means not very often. In fact, a blue moon is a calendar discrepancy because a lunar cycle lasts 29.5 days, while the average length of a calendar month is 30.5 days. So we usually have just one full moon per month, but every 2 or 3 years we have 13 full moons in a year. So there is 2 full moons occurring in 1 month, and this second full moon is called the blue moon. So a blue moon represents an interruption of your normal rhythm. It is viewed as an extra opportunity to wipe the slate clean. It is an invitation to focus this time on releasing, letting go, and allowing yourself to shift into the next phase of your life. This full moon, this blue moon, is truly illuminating the Sagittarius-Gemini axis, the great axis of thought, belief, movement, meaning, and also information. Sagittarius is a fire sign located on the mutable cross, and its symbol is very simple, an arrow. Is it not the fixed amber fire of Leo or the spark fire of Aries that ignites once? It is truly the flame that runs, that adapts, that advances with its bearer, like the torch of the Olympic runner runs with him. Sagittarius is a sign of determination and focus on the goal. It sees the goal, reaches it, and beyond that goal sees another one. So, in any case, Sagittarius is a sign of a vision of the future, of propulsion, of the horizon that you set before yourself so as not to suffocate in the daily routine. Sagittarius leads you towards a destiny broader than yourself. And in a more spiritual sense, it represents the Dharma or your life path. It is fundamentally the sign of truth. As a mutable sign, it is a fast-moving energy conducive to change. It constantly seeks expansion, evolution, openness. You are meeting a new horizon here. Uranus is in conjunction with the Sun at this time in Gemini, so it strongly imbues the light illuminating the moon. This conjunction is a key aspect of the full moon's climate. So it is an electric, revelatory light capable of bringing forth unexpected truth. Therefore, we can imagine that the truths that emerge at this time can be striking, sometimes a little shocking. In fact, it can be a little uncomfortable with the presence of Uranus, but we can clearly see that it is necessary, that it is leading us towards something greater. Uranus entered Gemini recently on April 26. He inaugurates a 7-year cycle of revolution in our way of thinking, moving, communicating, and processing information. And in opposition to the Sagittarius moon, it can awaken an old aspiration to break free from what has become a cage, even if that cage was once a comfortable home. There is an element of surprise with Uranus, which brings radical and lasting changes. It is not a minor adjustment. It is more like we are going to destroy, break, shatter a structure to allow something new, more authentic, more in tune to emerge. So this opposition can cause ruptures and sudden realizations. The conjunction Sun-Uranus in Gemini and in opposition to the moon activates the tension between the Gemini mind and the Sagittarius quest for meaning. It highlights a discrepancy between what we know, what we hear everywhere, and what each of us feels as profoundly true. So this full moon can correspond to a period of overabundance of information, media revelations, and this creates tension around the communication systems. The moon is closed to the black moon Lilith in Sagittarius. They are in a wide conjunction that gives a much more intense emotional tone and can reinforce the feeling of being something uncomfortable. Because the black moon acts as a revealer of shadows. She brings to light excesses, illusions, and especially in Sagittarius, erroneous idealized beliefs. And these directly affect meaning, truth, and the systems of thought and faith. This moon-Lilith conjunction marks a phase of stripping away, that is to say, certain convictions which you have inherited that have been built up over time, they are no longer old. And here there is a necessity to rebuild a more authentic, more transparent vision. Jupiter, the ruler of this full moon, is in Cancer and will leave this sign on June the 30th to enter Leo. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted, meaning he is very powerful here. Jupiter in Cancer deepens emotional intelligence. He expands the capacity to receive, to nurture, and to be nurtured. And Jupiter is in a wide conjunction with Venus in Cancer. And they will meet exactly on June 9. So mark the date to witness the amazing spectacle of their reunion that occurs every averagely 12 years in Cancer. So look at the night sky toward the west just after sunset. We can see in this Venus-Jupiter conjunction a reweaving of the heart, like an opening, a permission to feel what had been suppressed for too long. So something will overflow in the liberating sense of the word. An excess of emotions being released, a wave of self-love rising, an expansion of the heart, and it may surprise you. This Jupiter-Venus conjunction in Cancer could bring you emotional expansion, pleasure, and joyous relationship. But there is a slight shadow here, because this very positive momentum will be hampered by a square to Saturn in Aries. The square to Saturn is particularly active, especially on the Venus side. And it can create tension between the desire to love, to receive, to enjoy, which is Jupiter-Venus, and a reality that is actually colder, more demanding, and bring you emotional frustrations, disappointments, a feeling of not being valued for who you truly are. This is Saturn. And there is always a karmic element with Saturn. So this square aspect reactivates wounds related to love, self-love, self-esteem, and also material security. But all of this requires a certain maturity. In other words, it is no longer about waiting for external things to fill a void. But now you will have to build something solid and responsible, something that will emanate from within yourself. Another conversation catches my eyes, the very active square between the conjunction Mars-Chiron in Taurus and Pluton retrograde in Aquarius. Mars in Taurus is one of the most tenacious forces in the zodiac. Mars marks a new trail in the earth. He digs, he holds, he pushes with the constancy of someone who knows that what they are building requires time and solid foundations. Mars in Taurus does not attack. In fact, he settles in. He persists. He refuses to let go. He is an energy of pure will anchored in the body, in what truly matters, concretely. And on his side, Pluton in Aquarius does not negotiate. He goes down to the roots of what resists, what hides beneath the surface, what held a structure together by the sheer force of habit or fear. When Pluto meets Mars in a square, something needs to be disconstructed, not because it was bad, but because it has become too narrow for what you are becoming. So this square can generate tensions, perhaps muted tensions, like a rising pressure without you fully understand its origin, an internal or external resistance that refuses to yield. With a square between the two fixed signs, Taurus and Aquarius, nothing gets resolved quickly. Everything requires sustained, almost obstinate effort. It is like breaking down something rock solid. But if we look at the bright side, this square, when consciously traversed, can unleash a will, an immense force you didn't know you possessed to this degree. It reveals what in your way of acting or of positioning yourself in the world needs to be profoundly reconfigured. Let's not forget that Pluto never destroyed through cruelty or violence. In fact, it clears the way so that something more authentic can stand. And the participation of Charon, the wounded healer in Aries, in conjunction with Mars in Taurus, and in square to Pluto in Aquarius, changes the dynamic of this conversation. Charon is at 29 degrees of Aries, an anoretic degree, that is a degree of transition. There, something is coming to an end for everyone, and it will demand to be experienced with full awareness. You will have no choice. And with this energy of Aries, this directly touches on the fundamental question of existence. That is to say, the right to be yourself, the right to take your place, and the right to act according to your own impulse. Charon at 29 degrees of Aries evokes the end of a cycle linked to the wound of incarnation itself. And this awakens memories of powerlessness, difficulties in existing. This 29 degree demands essential integration. That is to say, truly learning to assert yourself without denying yourself. That is very important. Because the crisis that Charon provokes at the 29 degree should not be seen as a failure. It should be seen as a stage of maturation, a necessary passage to leave behind an identity built around the wound, in order to then access a more conscious and above all more just form of self-affirmation. So in this astral climate, Charon acts here as a point of condensation of tensions, but also as a lever for major evolution. It is not about completely healing the wound, but about changing how you respond to it. Psychologically, this Mars-Charon square to Pluto is extremely intense and could bring up a feeling of illegitimacy, difficulty asserting yourself without guilt or old anger linked to experience where self-affirmation was hindered, rejected, or punished. This can result in a significant inner tension where taking action becomes necessary for you to fully exist. But at the same time, this dynamic is charged with a fear of being hurt again or hurting others. So we are truly in a state of ambivalence here that can make your reactions much more intense and decisive. So be careful. This square conversation could also cause blockages, whether you create them yourself or find yourself facing difficult obstacles. And this experience will likely be lived with great intensity, even as direct confrontations with issues of power, territory, and respect. So this could bring conflicts, radical decisions, or moments where remaining passive will become impossible. So prepare yourself, because you will be forced to break out of your old patterns. And this full moon in Sagittarius offers you a perspective that this square alone cannot provide. She pulls you away from the obstacle to put you in face to face with a new horizon. The image here is that you are breaking down the wall to be able to see further. But of course, the obstacle is very real. But what you gain from it is this strength, this clarity, this decision that matures in resistance. Therefore, during this full moon, you might experience heightened power dynamics, authority struggles, and enormous inner pressure to change something. Mars Pluton square is fire, it is lava, it is raw energy, like an eruption coming from the depths. But this square can also become very constructive. There is no need to be afraid of it. It is a conversation that gives incredible strength because it comes from the depths of the soul, the psyche. It invites you to break with the past for you to reclaim your power. There is a challenge with this full moon centered around mutation. And in Sagittarius, it is a mutation that must take place centered around beliefs, because all beliefs are reaching their limits. Sagittarius governs our thought systems, our philosophies of life, our spiritual beliefs, in a certain way, our religion, everything that contributes to our way of interpreting the world. So it is important to look at the lunar node as well, because they represent the soul's evolutionary axis. The North Node has been in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo for almost 2 years now. And this month of June will be their last time on this Pisces-Virgo axis, as they will start their new journey on the Aquarius-Leo axis. And Uranus forms a T-square to the lunar node's axis, which will be exact on June 12. In this T-square, Uranus sits at the absolute point of maximum tension and challenges your old habits, routines. And because he is the planet of awakening, independence, and rebellion, this points to unresolved issues surrounding authority, the need for freedom, or a fear of being unpredictable. And this creates immense pressure, as Uranian energy is electrical, sudden, and disruptive. This T-square acts like a pressure cooker. Uranus refuses to conform and constantly seeks to shatter the statu quo. So beware of impulsive liberation, because here you are likely have a tendency to sabotage either your own security or your growth through sudden acts of rebellion or radical decisions. The lunar nodes on the mutable axis, Pisces-Virgo, also form a wide T-square to the full moon, which reinforces the notion of a crossroad. Mutable signs are linked to transition, to adaptation, and this T-square highlights a period where the old patterns no longer work, but also where the new is not yet stable. So it can or will generate a bit of instability, a lot of hesitation, a feeling of uncertainty. The lunar nodes full moon T-square is also an invitation to evolve, to make different choices, and above all, fundamentally, to break free from repeating the past. While everything is accelerating mentally with Uranus in Gemini, the collective North Node in Pisces reminds us all that the essential thing is that the answer will no longer come solely from the concrete mind, the intellect, the rational left brain, but from now passes through intuition, through spirituality, therefore through everything that is Pisces, feelings, dreams, inner connection. The North Node in Pisces invites you to have a stronger form of psychic openness. So you must return to this intuitive, very personal force, which stems from the higher mind. Because if you remain confined to the lower mind, which is the intellect, you will be crushed and surpassed by the artificial intellect and digital conversions. But what reveals you to yourself is indeed intuition, the higher mind, the connection to the soul, the connection to the spirituality. For his part, Saturn in Aries offers us maturity. Now he walks alone. He has emerged from the dissolving influence of Neptune. So he now holds a clear, autonomous, structuring position, and he forms a beautiful conversation, a trine with the full moon in Sagittarius. And that is a very beautiful gift. The Sagittarius moon loves to be independent. She loves to forge ahead without looking back. And Saturn in Aries won't stop her. On the contrary, he gives her a backbone. He tells her, go ahead, but know why you are living and where you are going. And ultimately, Saturn transforms Sagittarius' impetuosity into commitment. He converts enthusiasm into chosen responsibility, and he makes this full moon productive rather than exhilarating. So, with this Moon-Saturn trine, we can imagine a concrete plan taking shape. What was once an intuition becomes a decision. So, in a way, Saturn comes to secure the luminaries, Sun and Moon, because he can act as an anchor, provide structure, discipline, and above all, the ability to step back. This Saturn in Aries offers the possibility of finally giving concrete form to what is understood, and above all, of avoiding being swept away by the surrounding instability. Pluto, meanwhile, is retrograde in Aquarius and forms a supportive conversation, a sextile, with the full moon in Sagittarius. This brings a profound reconfiguration of the entire emotional body. It is like water slowly reshaping a riverbed. What is being reorganized here is how you inhabit your emotions, how you make them a tool for knowledge rather than a burden. And finally, we have Mercury, which is at the end of his sign, at 28 degrees of Gemini. He is very strong in his home sign, and he forms a square with Neptune in Aries. And this tense conversation adds a layer of mental confusion, meaning that despite great intellectual activity, be careful, because your perceptions can become blurred with distorted, misinterpreted information. And this reinforces the central theme of this full moon, namely the difficulty to distinguish truth from falsehood and the essential from the superficial. So you will really have to juggle things, especially since the astral climate of this full moon is marked with a dominant air element, with a relative lack of earth, which accentuates mental activity, exchanges, and ideas, and it makes grounding and concrete action more complicated and difficult. Mercury in Gemini also forms an almost exact sextile, a good conversation with Chiron in Aries. Chiron at 29 degrees of Aries is at its most advanced degree for years, about 50 years. That is his cycle, a cycle of rediscovered coherence. What Chiron had begun to weave in the domain of Aries, that is identity, vital energy, the right to exist fully, now is reaching a point of fulfillment. And Mercury in Gemini offers a new perspective on this journey. Now there is something that can be named, understood, integrated into the story you tell yourself about yourself. Karen has been in Aries since 2018, so for 8 years he has been working on your fundamental identity, your relationship with yourself, your life force, that inner flame that said, I am. And now it is about trusting your instinct, the ability to assert yourself without apologizing. Karen, at 29 degrees of Aries, is in the midst of a transition and is turning back one last time to look at the past travel from the bottom of the mountain. And he sees everything, what he has left behind, what he has found, and how much he has matured. Now he perceives things differently with much greater clarity, like anyone who has reached their alignment. Karen is like a bridge between Saturn and Uranus, between the known, structured, tangible world and the call toward what we have not yet dared to be. And that is precisely what it is, a passage that many of us have gone through since 2018, leaving the world of what we were supposed to be to enter the world of what we truly are. And what Karen has made possible in Aries is a new courage, the courage to act from your authentic self without waiting for anyone's permission. This is the focus of Karen, to allow your soul to no longer be a prisoner of your wound, to go through this wound, to transmute it, and to carry it as wisdom rather than a burden. Karen will enter Taurus on June 19, so a new threshold is opening for him. So before crossing the portal, you are invited to take the time, to pause for a moment, to recognize all that has been built, all that has opened up, all that has regained its coherence since 2018. There are surely some very, very beautiful things on this path that you are invited to look at. All that you have traveled, all that you have achieved, it is truly the ideal time for that. And opposite the sun, the moon in Sagittarius says, what do you believe? Not what you think. What do you believe? Are you focusing on the future, on yourself, on what is possible? And I feel a strong connection here with Ike. Ike, the first of the 7 principles of the Huna philosophy. Ike states that the world is what you think it is. Be aware. Ike asserts that your reality is not an objective, unchangeable truth, but rather a direct reflection of your internal perception, beliefs, and thoughts. The relationship between your beliefs and thinking is an active two-way loop, because your beliefs shape your thinking just as much as your thinking nourishes your beliefs. If you allow your beliefs to expand, your thinking will also expand, and vice versa. Because when you actively choose to adopt more expansive, limitless thoughts, you break down the boundaries of your current belief system. But if your mind blocks beliefs, your horizon will close. In Huna philosophy, the Aiki principle is highly practical. It shifts you from being a passive victim of circumstances into an active creator of your own experience. So this full moon reminds us that we are not passive spectators of a world that is transforming. We are the co-creators. And she's asking you, what version of yourself are you ready to become? She's asking you to have the courage to let go of your old identity and the courage to let go of your old limitations. Where you believe you cannot go, that you don't have the right to go, well, this Sagittarius Blue Moon pushes you toward a greater future, to transcend, to go beyond your known horizon, and to enter the new frequency of the new phase, which requires traveling lighter. This Sagittarius Blue Moon truly invites you to look beyond the tensions you have experienced recently in the past few months. She invites you to rediscover direction, a vision, and perhaps also greater confidence in what seeks to emerge within you. Certain truths may appear much more clearly now. Certain desires become impossible to ignore. Certain inner doors are just beginning to open. The Sagittarius moon reminds you that you need an horizon to move forward, that the way you look at the future infinitely and profoundly influences the path you are building. So practice a positive Ike. And don't forget to identify in your birth chart the houses that accommodate the 9-10 degree of Sagittarius and Gemini, and the first 2 degree of Gemini as well, where Uranus is positioned. This beautiful Sagittarius Blue Moon is a wonderful time to be doing your spiritual practices. It is also an auspicious time to communicate with ancestors and ask for guidance. And make sure to take time for yourself. Dare to follow the call of the future, which is already seeking to meet you. So be with yourself and simply listen to what comes spontaneously, naturally, through your intuitive mind, your body, and your heart. I hope this video gives you food for thought and also inspires you to be excited about your own destiny. If this video resonated with you, please share it with others. Feel free to subscribe, like, and comment, and book a reading with me whenever you feel the time is right. I wish you a magnificent blue moon in Sagittarius. May we all walk the path of our heart with love and light.